will regulated militia be necessary to the security of a free state? The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Welcome to another edition of Bearing Arms, Cam & Company. My name is Cam Edwards. Glad you're with me on the program today. Going to be talking with NRA-ILA Executive Director John Commerford here in just a moment or two. Obviously, a tragic weekend in Providence, Rhode Island, the shooting at Brown University. As of mid-morning on Monday, no suspect in custody. A person of interest was detained but was released late Sunday night. After the media, by the way, had already published this individual's name, which is problematic to say the least. We also saw the shooting at Bondi Beach in Australia, father and son. Charged with committing that crime on the first day of Hanukkah, and what authorities say was an attack aimed specifically at those of the Jewish faith. And again, you know, even before we knew any information about these incidents, we saw the demands for gun control, both from gun control groups, from individuals, a lot of celebrities out there pontificating about how the problem is guns. Very little talk, in fact, no real talk whatsoever about the fact that Rhode Island has some of the most restrictive gun laws in the nation. Australia has some of the most restrictive gun laws in the world. Again, when a crime like this happens and the rush to blame the inanimate object, it doesn't really matter what laws are on the books, right? There's always something more that can be done until, of course, gun ownership is banned altogether. For those of us who believe in waiting until the facts are known, as well as blaming the individual responsible for these crimes rather than the inanimate object that they used, again, there's not much to go on right now. In Australia, the killers apparently used shotguns, bolt-action rifles that were legally owned, again, even under Australia's very restrictive gun laws. We don't know really anything at all about the individual responsible for the attack in Providence, Rhode Island, other than apparently he used a revolver. There may have been a laser sight involved. I've seen people now say that we need to go after laser sights because, again, you got to go after something, I guess, if you're a gun control advocate. But as I mentioned, you know, Rhode Island has some of the most restrictive laws in the country, rated A- recently by Giffords. They've got a red flag law, universal background checks, ban on large capacity magazines, ban on so-called assault weapons, partial gun licensing, that, by the way, is still pretty discretionary an issue, despite the contention by the state that it is shall issue. And we don't know anything at all about the perpetrator, but very clearly those laws fail to prevent this attack from taking place. So with that in mind, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these incidents with John Commerford because I don't think there's any specific legislation to discuss, but we are going to talk about a little bit about, you know, how incidents like these, even in a time of declining violence, how they impact our ability to protect and strengthen our Second Amendment rights, both in Congress and at the state level. Take a look and listen. John, thanks very much for coming on the program. It's good to see you again.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And congratulations to you and the folks at NRA-ILA, named as two of the most effective grassroots lobbyists on Capitol Hill. That is a well-deserved honor, but it's great to see.
Yeah, thanks, Cam. It means a lot. I mean, it's really reflective of our members and their activity on Capitol Hill. That myself and Gordon Speed, who runs our federal affairs office, got named to the Hill's list.
You know, so let's talk about what lobbying looks like right now in a Congress that's controlled by Republicans, don't have the 60 votes to, get most things through the Senate, at least not without attracting bipartisan cooperation, which is, as you well know, very difficult when it comes to our Second Amendment rights. So what is NRA-ILA doing right now on Capitol Hill in terms of lobbying?
Well, I think working directly with Congress, we get in with the offices who need education on the issue. So right now we're working our top priority, H.R. 38, concealed carry reciprocity. So that issue has been socialized across Congress. It's been marked up in the House Judiciary Committee. But as you know, there are some offices. There's some offices that voted against it on the right-hand side of the aisle back in 2017. So we're working through that, providing support from law enforcement groups, explaining to those that really are behind the blue wall in strong anti-gun states that the rest of the country, providing for your own self-defense through concealed carry is a normal way of life. It's a normal way of life for law enforcement officers on traffic stops. And the fact is, concealed carry permit holders are the most law-abiding segment of the populace. So we go around and work with offices, work with staff, because staff are critically important when it comes to lobbying, and educate on that issue on behalf of our members.
How much of that also involves, like, I guess part of the education process, right, might be correcting some of the information that's put out there by opponents of, legislation like HR 38, Fraternal Order of Police, for instance, International Association of Chiefs of Police, both in opposition, even though, John, under the Law Enforcement Officer Safety Act, law enforcement officers basically have universal recognition, right? They can carry in all 50 states, even those states that don't recognize valid concealed carry licenses from other states.
Yeah, I mean, we feel there shouldn't be special classes of citizens when it comes to your Second Amendment rights. Law-abiding Americans are law-abiding by definition. They should be allowed the same exact permissions and rights that former law enforcement officers have. Now, we strongly support our friends in blue, and we've been that way, and we'll always be that way. However, it was disappointing to see FOP side with a notoriously anti-gun organization to put out some claims that, quite frankly, we disagree with. Our friends at the National Sheriff's Association support the legislation, and others. Again, I think it is law enforcement groups, falling for those fear tactics that we see from our opponents. The fact is, concealed carry, even though you shouldn't even have to get a government permit in 29 states, you don't have to, but it's been an overwhelming success nationwide. Again, the fact is, concealed carry permit holders are the most law-abiding segment of the populace by statistics. So that is something that's undeniable, and it's something that would not be an issue in these blue states. So our lobbying effort and our incredible team on Capitol Hill, they're doing it every day, working with staff and lawmakers to try to beat back those irrational fears related to law-abiding Americans just trying to provide for their own self-defense.
Well, and I mean, I'm guessing those fears are ratcheting up on Capitol Hill today. We saw the shooting at Brown University over the weekend. We really know very little. There was a person of interest that was detained, but they were released last night. Indications are that this was a handgun, perhaps a revolver that was used in the crime, maybe a revolver and a semi-automatic handgun. Rhode Island, we know, has some of the most restrictive gun laws in the country, but Chris Murphy's out there on TV on Sunday talking about the need for more federal gun legislation. This doesn't have to happen, but not telling us exactly what he would do to prevent this from happening. So when we see a high-profile shooting like the one at Brown over the weekend, how does your role and does Gordon's role shift at all? And if so, how so, as a result of these incidents and the tendency by anti-gun politicians to sort of seize on that moment?
Well, look, NRA gets criticized from time to time when an unfortunate event occurs for not jumping out there and commenting on the situation. We wait until the facts are known. Our opponents on the radical left, they'll call for universal background checks in a state like Rhode Island, where they have every gun control law that the left advocates for. It's one of the most strict states in the country when it comes to gun control. We saw that unfortunate tragedy and terrorism in Australia. Australia has the strictest gun control in the entire world. Those hell-bent on committing harm are going to commit harm. Whether they use a Ford Lightning pickup truck like happened in New Orleans, whether they use swords and stabbing attacks like we see in other parts of the world, or unfortunately if they use a firearm. But the fact is, gun-free zones are that in name only. And we educate on that. Simply putting up a gun-free zone sign doesn't provide for anyone's safety. The only thing that truly does is adequate security measures. If you can assure me that this area has no armed individuals, there's armed security, there's magnetometers, then we can have a discussion about a gun-free zone. But until then, don't take away law-abiding Americans' right to defend themselves in whatever manner they choose. And it's important for us to educate on that when we have those conversations on Capitol Hill. And, our thoughts are with the unfortunate tragedy and the victims in Rhode Island and those in Australia.
Absolutely. All right, so we are rapidly approaching the end of 2025. I know that there are some legislators that are in session year round, but a lot of states are going to kick off in early January, maybe February. I live in Virginia. I don't know where in the D.C. area you happen to live, John, but as a Virginian, I am very concerned about an onslaught of gun legislation. Democrats have been playing their cards very close to the vest. We actually haven't seen a lot of gun control bills introduced yet, but we know that they're coming. Beyond playing defense in states like Virginia, what are NRA-ILA's legislative priorities at the state level for 2026?
Well, I'll start with that. I think it's working to protect our friends in the firearms industry. Look, I always equate it to this. NRA represents people in front of the counter, the consumer. There's a firearms industry lobby. They represent those behind the counter, but neither one of us survives, and our rights don't survive unless we can have lawful commerce across the counter. So what we're seeing is a coordinated attack on the firearms industry, similar to what we saw before the enactment of the Protection of Lawful Commerce and Arms Act. So NRA is going to weigh into that fight as well to make sure trial lawyers aren't taking advantage of the money coming from the radical left to go after the law-abiding firearms industry and dealers.
And that is, by the way, one of the two bills that's already been introduced in Virginia.
Yep.
Right? It's a bill that would specifically make it easier to sue gun makers and gun sellers for the actions of criminals.
You're exactly right. I'm here in Virginia with you, and you're right. SB 27 was pre-filed, and that is one of the worst examples we've seen of treating the firearms industry as a quote-unquote public nuisance, to where the trial lawyers can salivate over lawsuits against the industry, and it can even allow for a civil case to be successful, even if there was no wrongdoing proven by the member of the firearms industry. And the term they use for firearms industry is exceptionally broad. So I think here in the Commonwealth, as session kicks off, you're going to see that is one of their top priorities, a wide-ranging semi-automatic firearm ban and a ban on commonly owned magazines and standard capacity magazines. In addition to a permit to purchase, permit to acquire, required training, all of those items. We know exactly what they want to do because they've tried to do it for the last 2 years. And thankfully for Governor Youngkin, he's vetoed those. We don't have that safeguard anymore. We have a salivating anti-gun universe down in Richmond that are looking to try to make this their next example. And NRA and VCDL and others here in the state, we're ready to meet that fight. We'll be down there on Gun Lobby Day, rallying our members, getting our members to contact their state lawmakers, and of course the governor.
Yeah, and I hope that gun owners are paying attention in Virginia. I think that they are, but well, at least some of them are. But I think a lot more of them need to hear that alarm bell ringing right now.
Absolutely.
And in terms of those states where we can go on offense and try to strengthen and secure our right to keep and bear arms, at least on paper, right? Florida has been a challenge. The state house has passed pro-gun legislation every year, and a lot of those bills have gone on to not even get a hearing in the state Senate. What do you think that this might be the year? Obviously, open carry is now the law of the land in Florida because of a court decision, not because of the legislature. But there's still, the bill that would repeal the law that bans gun sales to adults under the age of 21. The Senate president's been pretty non-committal about that. I know that the head of the Senate Rules Committee, former Senate President Kathleen Passidomo, has been pretty adamant she doesn't want to hear this bill. What are the odds, you think, right now, John, that we can get some of these bills supported by Governor DeSantis, supported again by a majority of the House, and I suspect supported by a majority of the Senate as well? What are the odds you think that we can actually bring those bills to the Senate floor for an up or down vote?
Well, keep in mind, we do have a challenge to Florida's unconstitutional under 21 gun ban pending before the Supreme Court. We didn't hear an answer on that today, but we are hopeful the Supreme Court will take up that issue so we can finally settle that nationwide, because there are other states out there that do restrict the rights of law-abiding young adults from exercising their Second Amendment rights. I mean, they could serve. Rhode Island
is one of them, as a matter of fact. Yeah,
they could serve in our military, die for this country. They can enter into contracts, marriage, etc. They should be able to exercise their Second Amendment rights. But we don't rely and wait just on the courts. We're going to continue to push for this issue in the legislature. Our members want to see this down there. The House has been extremely supportive, but you hit the nail on the head. The Senate has been an issue. Not all senators, just a few. So when we get back to what we started in this conversation, lobbying revolves around education, right? Educating our members and educating lawmakers. Our members who are educated will contact lawmakers, and then our staff will directly talk to those lawmakers and their staff and get rid of those irrational fears around young adults. Again, this was enacted because of a deranged criminal who was hell-bent on committing harm. Not to keep circling back on the same terms, but that is the fact. Someone was hell-bent on committing harm, and unfortunately he did so, even though all of the signs were there to address that individual. But the state reacted in a way to ban Second Amendment rights for all adults under the age of 21. That's not the answer. So we will educate on that, and we'll continue to push. So we're going to hit every vehicle we can to restore those rights for those adults in Florida.
All right. John, listen, I appreciate you carving out a couple of minutes of what is, I'm sure, a very busy day. But thank you again for all of your efforts, all the folks at NRA-ILA working in both federal affairs, state and local affairs as well, the grassroots coordinators. And, you know, I was talking about this a little bit last week with, I forget who it was, but we were talking about the importance of grassroots organizing. Tim Knight, matter of fact, a former NRA board member. If an NRA member wants to get more involved at their state or local level, how do they do that? How do they work with NRA-ILA?
Sure. If you go to NRA-ILA.org, you can go to our grassroots. There's a tab right there. First, you can sign up for our alerts, so you're in the know. You're educated as well. We don't fundraise through those alerts. You can also sign up to be a grassroots volunteer right through that process. And you'll either have a staff member from NRA reach out, or we have someone called Frontlines activist leaders out there. They might be a gun shop. They might just be a passionate individual in your area. They'll reach out, and whether you get a call to be activated for legislative push or come election time to get out there and knock doors, text message, do phone calls to elect like-minded individuals to the state legislature, Congress, the Senate, or the White House. That's really where the power of NRA comes. Is our folks, they go to the ballot box and they vote, and they're activated. So go to NRA-ILA.org and get more information there.
All right. John, thanks again for your time, sir. Look forward to doing this again very soon.
Thank you, Cam. Appreciate it.
My thanks to John for joining us on the program. Looking forward to having him back again, probably soon into the new year, probably the next time we speak with him. All right, before we get to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report, let's talk about this for a second. From city streets to mountain trails, your gear should go wherever life takes you. That's why at Modern Rugged Leather, every bag is handcrafted from premium, responsibly sourced leather, designed to look sharp, last long, and tell a story of its own. This is my Modern Rugged bag. I actually had a chance to take it on the road this weekend. It lived up to my expectations. I talked before about just the quality and the workmanship. I literally went, wow, when I opened up the box that had this Modern Rugged bag, because the quality is just self-evident, right? I mean, it's just readily apparent. But this was the first time I had a chance to road test it. And again, it was great. I was able to fit everything I take with me on the road. And it's weird. I mean, I used to use a backpack, and that backpack would be stuffed to the brim. This bag, I got to say, it didn't even feel like it was, jammed full of stuff, but I had everything I needed right there at my fingertips. Every stitch, every buckle, every strap reflects timeless craftsmanship. It's backed by a lifetime warranty because quality shouldn't quit when the adventure begins. So whether it's the boardroom or the back roads of Virginia, Modern Rugged Leather, or any other state, Modern Rugged Leather helps you carry confidence every step of the way. Modern Rugged Leather, modern style, timeless durability, backed for life. Life takes you places. Make sure your gear keeps up. Shop the full collection and find yours today at modernrugged.com. Again, that's modernrugged.com. All right, on to today's Armed Citizen story, our good deed of the day, and our recidivist report. We will start there with a case out of North Dakota, where a suspect in a standoff in Fargo has a lengthy criminal history, both in North Dakota and in neighboring Minnesota as well. 24-year-old Damon Peterson. Now, keep that age in mind. 24 years old. Taken into custody following the deployment of flashbangs after officers tried to serve an outstanding warrant for a parole violation that Mr. Peterson had racked up. According to Fargo's KVLY TV, the SWAT team response was mobilized due in part to Peterson's previous criminal history. This again was related to a previous burglary conviction. He was convicted of third-degree burglary in Clay County, North Dakota, 5 years ago in 2020. In Clay County, though, he's also been convicted, besides burglary, of domestic assault, receiving stolen property in two separate cases, two separate theft convictions. The receiving stolen property conviction resulted from a guilty plea that had 6 other criminal counts dismissed. So in other words, we'll plead guilty to the lesser charge, and those most serious charges will disappear. That's actually been a recurring theme throughout the 24-year-old's criminal history. Excuse me. They say that he's got 21 different cases listed in the North Dakota court system. He's been extradited from North Dakota 4 times as a fugitive of justice. He was recently, sentenced in February of this year to 13 months in jail for receiving stolen property. That was out of Minnesota. The TV station says the jail time was concurrent with 3 other cases. And in Cass County, North Dakota, he's got felony charges, 5 different cases, terrorizing, to domestic violence, to preventing arrest, to a simple assault of a peace officer. And in 2 of these cases, the most serious charges, terrorizing and felonious restraint, were dismissed following guilty pleas. So again, you plead guilty to lesser charges. You obviously get a lesser sentence. The prosecutor gets that conviction, right? They can say, look, we got the best deal we thought we could. We took a dangerous offender off the street for, a period of months. Conviction rate stands at 97, 98%. Look how good a job we're doing. But you got to read the fine print. You got to read the fine print. And I would argue that even if the chances of an acquittal are higher, the case going to trial, when you see somebody who's 24 years old, has 21 cases listed in the North Dakota court system, has more cases out of Minnesota, the usual way prosecutors do business isn't working. Offering him these plea deals where, the prosecutor might get the satisfaction of seeing him go away for a period of months, it's not sticking. It's not sticking. So hopefully this time around, the prosecutor in the case will say, you know what? No deal. We're going to take our chances at going to trial and securing a conviction that will send this individual, as a very difficult time abiding by the law, behind bars for a significant period of time. All right, on to today's armed citizen story from Michigan, where a now former TSA agent has been acquitted in a highway shooting after a jury ruled that he acted in self-defense. This was, originally described as a road rage incident. Alec Thiemann was driving north on the freeway in Huron Charter Township. This was back on June 12th of last year. When he shot at a 46-year-old man from Romulus, Michigan, who was driving beside him on I-275. Wayne County prosecutors said that Thiemann shot at that man because he was enraged. His attorney, James Mikowski, said no, he was acting in self-defense. He said he was in fear for his life. He said my client was being run off the road at 80 miles an hour. He went on to say, as I told the jury, would I have used a firearm in that instance? I don't know, because I wasn't there. All I can say is that he reasonably believed that he was in fear for his life. Mikowski said that while the other driver in this case, the guy who was initially described as the victim here, told police and testified that the Thiemann rammed into him, shot at him for no reason, it was the driver who actually hit Thiemann. He said the other driver rammed into Thiemann's vehicle, then hit him a second time, and was driving in 2 lanes. Said the other driver tried to chase Thiemann as he drove to the police station. Both drivers at that point on the phone with 911. A dispatcher ordered the other driver not to chase Thiemann. Both were told go separate ways to the police station. Mikowski said that he hired an accident reconstructionist who contradicted the findings of the Michigan State Police and determined that Thiemann was telling the truth. Nobody was wounded in the incident, thankfully. But the jury did acquit Thiemann earlier this month on charges of assault with intent to murder, assault with intent to do great bodily harm, felonious assault, reckless driving, commission of a felony with a motor vehicle, and 3 counts of possessing a firearm while committing a felony. Those are serious charges, right? And Thiemann wanted to take this case to trial. I don't know if a deal was offered, but this case went to trial, and a jury of his peers acquitted him of crimes that could have put him behind bars for not just a matter of months, but for many, many years. His attorney said that his client, quote, relieved doesn't even begin to cover it. TSA, by the way, had tried to fire Thiemann after he was charged. This would have been done in the Biden administration. The case was put on hold, though, pending the outcome of the criminal case. Now that he's been acquitted, his attorney says he doesn't know if Thiemann will be able to get his job back. I certainly hope so. I don't think there should be any punishment for acting in self-defense. And if he has been acquitted by a jury of his peers, then yes, the federal government should give him his job back, especially a pro-Second administration like the Trump administration. And finally, our good deed of the day. In the right place, at the right time, willing and able to do the right thing. You know, I look for, and I generally have a hard time picking our good deed of the day. There are usually more than one worthy contenders. I saw this headline, though, and there was something about it that just grabbed me. Maybe it's the time of year. I don't know. This guy's kind of like Santa. Hospice patients gives woodwork to needy children. This is not from it's not from a news outlet I've ever heard before. McKnight's Home Care. So apparently a site that focuses on specifically hospice and long-term care. They had the story of 85-year-old Kenneth Reynolds. He is a home hospice patient at Good Samaritan Society in Ottumwa, Iowa. And he has been a woodworker for a long time. The administrator there at the home hospice, Kara Klein, says our chaplain was the one that started to bring this gift-giving part of the story out to life. At our last meeting for a hospice, he mentioned, hey, this guy's kind of like Santa Claus right now. He's actually giving these gifts to children. He says, I witnessed it myself. Chaplain was paying Kenneth Reynolds a visit and actually saw Reynolds give a toy that he had crafted to a kid from the neighborhood. And so that's when they decided, you know what, let's see if we can help take this bigger. Reynolds is on hospice because of cancer. And he says, everyday life is his biggest influence. He's created everything from semi-trucks to totem poles to planes, Tommy guns. Said he only recently stopped working on projects because of his health, but he's got a lot of those projects that are complete and are there in his workshop. He said, if you just go with the flow, an idea will come to you. You just got to do the best you can. He said, some of the projects turned out to be pretty good. He said, I've also made some mistakes. You just got to start all over again. It's the only way I know how to do it. So the home hospice, again, working with Kenneth Reynolds to distribute his projects in the greater community. And in doing so, I don't know that this is why Kenneth Reynolds is doing it. But after he is gone, a part of him will live on in those projects that he made. And those kids who received one of the toys that Kenneth Reynolds has made will have that connection, whether or not they realize it or not. They'll have that connection. And hopefully as they grow up and they get older, they'll learn a little bit more about the man who crafted that toy. I suspect that these toys will become treasured family heirlooms in a lot of circumstances. Sounds like Kenneth Reynolds is a pretty special guy. And I'm glad to see that, again, in his final days, he continues to give back to the community, have an impact. And again, I think I think that he's going to live on through his work long after he's gone. So Kenneth Reynolds, folks there at the Good Samaritan Society in Ottumwa, Iowa, we thank you for your very good deeds. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Bearing Arms Cam and Company. And I want to thank you, as always, for being a part of the program. We're going to be talking with Knox Williams from the American Suppressor Association on Tuesday's Bearing Arms Cam and Company. ATF getting ready to take a pause in processing suppressor applications in advance of the January 1st effective date of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, at which point the $200 tax stamp is zeroed out and disappears. Also, I want to talk with Knox about how this registry is going to work. Because remember, the Senate the Senate originally said, we're getting rid of the $200 tax, we're getting rid of the registration requirements. Senate parliamentarians said, nah, you can't do that. You can get rid of the tax, but you can't get rid of the registration requirement. But the registration requirement is actually a registry of who's paid the tax. So how is this going to work in practice come January 1st or January 2nd? We'll talk about it with the American Suppressor Association's Doc Williams on Tuesday's Bearing Arms Cam & Company. Be sure to check out bearingarms.com, though, throughout the day. We are keeping you up to date on all of the latest Second Amendment news and information from all across the nation. And if you like what you see in terms of our coverage, maybe not in terms of the news out there, but in terms of our coverage, I certainly would encourage you to become a VIP Gold, or VIP Platinum member. You'll get great benefits at every tier of support. And no matter which tier you choose, you will be supporting the independent pro-Second Amendment journalism that we're doing here at Bearing Arms. So thank you very much. Use the promo code FIGHT, and you can get 60% off your VIP Gold, or VIP Platinum membership. Have a great rest of your Monday, as good as Mondays can be. I'll see you back here tomorrow for a Tuesday edition of Bearing Arms Cam & Company. Until then, be well, be safe, and be free.